Okay, now we're going to learn about the X-ray tube. So this is our X-ray tube. It normally sits in this kind of a resting position that's out of the way. No one's going to run into it. In order to move it, there are some colored buttons on the front that coordinate with some colored stripes on the front of the gantry here. So if I want to move it up or down, there's a blue stripe on the front. I can use the blue button or gray button. People see that as different colors a little bit. But to move it up or down, you use the blue or gray button on the right hand side. To move it left to right or along the horizon line, then we use the green, which coordinates with the green stripe. And we're going to move it across the room. If you're moving it over the patient, make sure you're high enough that you're not brushing across the top of the patient or hitting the patient with the tube. And then the pink button coordinates with the pink stripe to move it transversely or crosswise across the room. So this moves it this way, transverse, and this would move it horizontally. Horizontally would be left to right, and transverse would be front to back or across the patient or across the room, okay? All right, there's a few other controls that I want to show you all. Let me make sure we're centered well enough that you can see them. And I'm gonna actually move it over just a little bit again. Okay, so the buttons on the front of the tube. The first one, this one rotates. So this one rotates it or angles it left to right, okay? So our patients always lay on the table with their head on the left end, their feet at the right end. So if I rotate toward the patient's head, that term is called cephalic or cephalic angle. If I angle toward the patient's feet or to the right, that's caudad. So those are part of those radiology terms that we are asking you guys to really focus on right now. You do not have to worry about this button here or any of these indicators. This is our light that turns on, our centering light. And this here actually does indicate how much you're angled. So we need to make sure it's at 0 or as close to 0 as possible. And remember, we do accept 0.5 above or below. This one here rotates the whole thing left to right. So the reason we want to do that would be if we were going to shoot a cross table image, I could rotate the tube this way and then turn it then to direct it toward the patient. Okay, so that's the purpose of that rotation left to right. But for right now, you'll need to remember that this top button here, this top angle button, this is the one that you want if you're rotating cephalad toward the patient's head or caudad toward the patient's feet. So those are some of the controls here. Now you can see I'm not aligned to anything. So if I want it to be aligned to the table or to the wall, the first thing I have to do is get these angles correct. All right, so if I want to get it back to 0 where there's no angulation, I have a 0.1. That's within that 0.5, so that's okay. I really would like it to say 0 instead. You just kind of have to keep messing with it. And then the same for rotation. Just move it until you finally get it to that 0.0. And it's very particular, and that's why we accept the 0.5 above or below. So again, this here is a all release button, which for just moving it across the room, it's okay to use this button. If you're aligning, I need you to go ahead and align using the transverse and horizontal. Green is horizontal, pink is transverse, okay? All right, remember, green, the G in green is close to the H in horizontal in the alphabet, okay? And then transverse is close to the P in the alphabet. The T is close to the P in the alphabet. So if that helps you to remember, up and down is blue. That's not really close, but for these two here, it might help you to remember which one moves it where. But if you go to move it across the room, transverse, and you push the green button, it just won't do anything, okay? If you go to move it horizontally and you push the pink button, it may come towards you, but it's not going to go left or right, okay? So in order to align, then we need to align to the arrows that are aligned to the indicators that indicate that our tube is aligned to our bucky. And I'm going to do that in a different video. But I just wanted you to show you the controls. There are a few more controls that I want you to see. You don't have to worry about any of this here, but these two little buttons here, one of them lessens the amount of SID that we're using as far as the setting. If we had it at a 72-inch SID and now we're going to use 40, then you use the minus button. If you were at 40 and now you're going to 72 and you need to increase that, then you need to use the plus button, and just it toggles between the two. But for each projection that you do, you need to make sure that you set that. Are we at 40 or are we at 72? And it's not exact. Right now, it's supposed to be for 40-inch SID, and it's set at 39.4. And that's just how our biomedical engineers set that. If I change it to 72, it actually goes to 70.9. I would like that to be a little more exact, but it's not. But for each projection, you need to set this SID indicator, always. It affects your collimation. So on collimation, when we're setting a particular collimation, I hope you can see this. Let me take a quick look. Actually, you can if you're close. I'm going to move this over a little bit, move it down, so maybe you'll be able to see a little bit better. Okay, this left side, if you look here, there's two little red pictures on the front. One of them shows the red bars close together, and one shows the red bars far apart, and that's the left to right. Okay, so if we're changing our collimation, if we twist this knob, then it's going to open the collimation inside or close it down, moving the collimators left to right, okay? So if we want it to be a smaller film, then we're going to bring that in. So we're going to turn the knob to the left or to this side where they're closer together. If we want to open it up wider, then we turn it to the right. On our patient, if we want to open the width of so that affects the length. This is length and this is width. So if we want to affect the width, you can see these are close together and these are far apart. So if I move it, turn it to the left, then it's going to be a more narrow cassette. And if I turn it to the right, then it's a wider cassette. So length is always on the left side and width is on the right. So if we have a 14 by 17 cassette and we have it lengthwise, the first thing, this is our length. So we're going to open it as long as it'll go. And on this machine, it's a 16.1. And then if we're going to set the width of it, it's going to be a 14-inch width. And then we can actually mess with that and get it right at 14. Or we do allow that 0.5 above or below. So right now it reads 16, because that's our length of our cassette, by 14-inch, because that's the width of it side to side, okay? So length times width. We also have a tape measure here on the front. So if we're measuring to the tabletop, measuring to our IR, or measuring to our patient, you can see the little indicator here on the front that tells you where it's at. Just reach in there and pull it in order to get it where it needs to be. This here turns on our light and turns off our light. So if we're going to pull our tube across our patient, you always want to turn the light off so we're not shining a light directly in their face. Okay, so that is all about the tube.